Welcome to the Possibility Action Network podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton, aka Possibility Man. We're committed to bringing you guests who strive to better people's lives and serve as a force for good in the world. Our guest today is Laura Brennan Ballet. She's the author of an amazing book entitled The Science of Empowerment. She is an expert in negative, positive, and neutral fields of energy. She is an instructor at Jekyll Fitness in Connecticut. Their brand promise is that they assist individuals in maximizing their mental, emotional, and physical potential. The book, Laura boldly asserts, is a comprehensive guide for individuals seeking to live an empowered life. Laura, welcome to the show today.
Hello, Stephen. Thank you for having me. We've already got this amazing energy going on even before we went live. So I'm excited.
Well, look, I got to contain myself because I've been excited to talk to you since I saw this book. But first, this program note to our listeners and our viewers: like, share, and subscribe to this podcast wherever you found it. Now, Laura, I found you on LinkedIn. I saw the title, The Science of Empowerment, and I thought, I got to talk to her. Got to ask you, why did you write this book?
Thank you. First, I want to express a heartfelt gratitude notation for sharing life with you. It is amazing. We were talking about this connectivity and building relationships and really networking. For me, networking is all about connectivity for elevation. So I appreciate you. I wrote this book because it has been sitting in me since I was about 14 years old. I have been into empowerment my whole life. It almost was a coping mechanism, let's say, for challenges as I was moving through all of our teenage years and our young 20s, etc. But the very unique aspect is my brother and I are a fierce sibling team. Christopher created the formula, the J3 = E formula, which we'll talk about. And that inspired me to create the science of empowerment. And one day, he just said, sister, you need to write a book. And there's a way for you to bridge what we used to talk about more mainstream. So rather than get all into neuroscience and new sciences and go too heavy into that, he just liked the way I would express how to live an empowered life. So I sat down, and 5 years later, the book was written. So it was not a quick write. It was a well thought out, but very thoughtful execution of what was in my mind and how I perceive universal energies coming through and information that I could impart to help others really elevate their daily experiences.
That's fantastic. Now, you mentioned that this book was growing inside you at least since you were 14 years of age. What were you discovering in your mid-teens?
Yeah, so I think like many of us, especially in that very angst-ridden time of our life, we venture off into areas that are not the best suited for our highest and best self. And that could be, drinking or drugs, or it could be getting involved with boyfriends or girlfriends, right? And we go through all that emotional trauma. And I found myself at one point really observing patterns, and they were negative patterns. And I just thought that there's something past this human condition where we all have this very chaotic way of living our life. And I used to talk to my mom about it and friends about it. And I just would always look at other ways to upbuild my experiences. And that could be looking at ancient theory. It could be the new sciences, neuroscience, psychology. And the very unique thing about my brother and I is our parents taught us how to deal with challenges through athleticism. So even my dad would say, if we came home from school and homework was too much, or we were upset, or if, you got into a fight with your boyfriend, my dad would say, go outside, run the block, go on the monkey bars, go on the swing, kick the soccer ball around, go ice skating, go skiing. They always taught us how to use physicality to move through emotional challenges, which is something I think very unique coming from an author's perspective.
Yeah. So, so as a child, did you consider, or have you considered since, where these powerful insights are coming from?
Yes, and this is a personal connection to what I call universal energies, God energy, universal principles, laws of physics, right? The thoughtfulness around psychology. I felt that I always tapped into a knowledge that was beyond my obvious understanding. So in other words, right, there's leadership in the world that are highly educated, degrees all over different fields. So when they speak, you think to yourself, well, they're well read, they're educated, therefore this makes sense. Me, I went on a very different path. I went on a very internal journey. I looked at different studies, a little bit into Taoism, Buddhist philosophies, looking into a lot of ancient cultures. I looked into Sumerian and Anunnaki. I looked into the Egyptian schools, right? The mystery schools. The Bible, if I was back in that day and I was listening to a human being like Jesus, how would I interpret that? So I started looking at how I could study information that was available, but yet I had my own spin on how it empowered me. And that is what decades later became the science of empowerment, looking at thought itself and how to redesign the architecture of how we think in order to evolve.
Yeah. Okay. So now you mentioned the science of empowerment, the title of your book, and I want to spend some time with this because I tell you, you are advertising something very bold to me, the science of empowerment. So let's unpack that a bit. What do you mean by the science of empowerment?
Yes. So if we look at traditional science, most people think there has to be a formula, a beta, collect data, and then there's the results. So that's one way of looking at science. For me, the word science is exploration into human potential, the science behind it. Now, we happen to be very fortunate that we have an actual formula that we apply to our clients and when we speak and when we're in interviews, and we have real formulaic results from just applying this formula to, again, everyday life. So the science is about being able to apply a system, a way of being that actually recalibrates your present condition. So let's just say you're in a pattern of negative exchange with your partner, and you've been arguing over the same thing for years. And no matter how much therapy and counseling or books you read or journaling you do, it's not breaking. When I have clients that come to my private practice and we apply this formula, within 24 hours, things begin to shift. Because what the science of empowerment does is it puts the person in the power seat of choice. How am I reacting, responding? What am I accountable for within this experience? And they begin to understand that I can no longer expect the other person, my boss, my leadership, whatever it may be, a school teacher, or my husband, my wife, my partner, to change. It is within me, myself, to create that change. So I begin to live a very different experience within this relationship. And this is where empowerment really starts to take hold. So you apply the science of the J3 equals E formula, very applicable, very simple, and it begins to put you in the power seat of choice, accountability, and now things start to shift.
So, as I've been looking at your work, it seems to me that you understand that a human being is more than what we see when we look in the mirror. How do you see us? Who are we?
Yeah. So I write about this in the science of empowerment, and I tell everyone I can when I have the opportunity. So thank you. I truly believe that coded within our DNA is the brilliance and the genius of the universe. And it doesn't matter how you look at it. You can say God is coded in the DNA. Universal energy is coded in the DNA. There's an electricity, there's a current, a fluidity of potential that is waiting to be tapped into or merged in with. And when you figure that out, there's a knowing, there's a sensory that becomes awakened, and you realize, I do not need to settle any longer. I have the ability to shift, change, and advance my life how I see that to be, not by anyone else's accord, but by my own choice. There's something out there that I believe within the human condition, we aren't born or bred or raised to fully engage in human potentiality. And the science of empowerment, again, I wrote this to spark that in the reader. Wait a minute, I can do this. I can not only dream big or goal big, but I actually have what it takes to create what I know would bring me happiness, tranquility, peace, excitement, abundance, good health. And we do. And I think for each person, it's an individualized journey. And again, I have many family and friends. We can get it through our connection with God. We can get it, a connection through other teachings, or what I like to do is say, connect to that part that's already within you. Don't put the power outside of you. It's in you.
I get this impression, and I could be wrong, but this is my sense of it. I felt this book, that you are uniting the scientific knowledge or scientific understanding with spiritual understanding. Is that what you're doing, or is this just my impression?
No. And let me just say, even if it was, how beautiful. Use that to empower your life. This is the beauty of the book. It isn't to tell you how to be, how to think, how to redesign your life. It actually opens something up, right? It expands rather than contracts your mindset, your ability. But yes, this is what I consider a very powerful alchemy of new sciences, new education, new ways of looking at human potential. And we use wisdom and insight and studies and teachings and great spiritual books and beautiful leadership that has gone before us. We bring that in and we look at it and we start to move it around so that it actually ignites our own power.
Right. And, I have the book here, and we're going to dig into this book in a moment, but I want everyone to know that on the cover of this book, Laura has a formula, J3 equals E. Laura, what's that formula?
Yes. So first and foremost, a heartfelt acknowledgement to my brother, Chris Brennan. He was the creator of the J3 equals E formula. From that, I started applying it to my own life, my clients, whether I was physically training them or working as their mindset coach to empower their life. I looked at it and I was like, whoa, this is amazing. Now, my brother used to work this formula with athletes, whether they were 4 years old all the way up. These were people and young adults that were already primed to become champions, right? The discipline and the devotion to have that end result. I'm a regular kid. I wanted to know, how can I take this champion formula and put it into my family, my relationship with my husband? How could I offer a skill set to my young daughters as they were growing up and through all of what we've been through? How can I elevate my clientele with something that typically only coaches and champions to be in training have? That's when my brother said, let's go with this formula. So the very cool thing about it is, and I'll tell you a really cool story in a moment. So the J stands for Jekyll, and that is the acronym for 4 people that are very important to my brother Christopher. So the J stands for Jimmy and Johnny. Those are 2 of his lifelong best friends. The E is for Eric. He was the first person that took his program and training on. The K is for our cousin Kermit. My brother and Kermit have a very empowered relationship since they were little kids, their whole life through. The L is for his sister, Laura. That's me. And then there's a branding, which is the halo, and that is our mom and our dad. So that is where that formula name came to be. The 3 is for negative, positive, neutral. Which energy are you? So the 3 is always representing the fields of energy, and the E represents empowerment. Now, contained within the J formula are 5 empowering, easy to apply to every experience principles. All right. And they are awareness, willingness, accountability, critical thinking, and energy. So another acronym out of that is AWAKE. So when you go into any environment, frustration at work, driving your car and you feel like you're getting into road rage, having a fight with your spouse, your kids are driving you crazy, you're insecure about starting a business, any and all challenges that the human condition presents, here we go into, where's my awareness? Right off the bat. What am I willing to do about it? Where is my accountability in this experience? Critical thinking, I love this. We take the emotionality out. We learn how to begin to respond through positive intelligence rather than react through behavioral habits, negative patterns. And then energy, negative, positive, neutral. This is my favorite, no matter what. If you take anything away from today, always ask yourself, which energy am I? And then look on a scale, negative, neutral, positive. So most of us understand very quickly what negativity feels like. And most of us know that to get from negative to a neutral position can even be challenging. But getting from neutral to positive for most people, because we're in patterns all the time, is near impossible. So when you apply the principles and you ask yourself that aspect of the formula, and then you neutralize how you're feeling, and you start to think differently, you now begin to learn that skill set, that movement between negative and neutral more easily. And once you're in neutral, to power up to positive is very, very easy. So that's a general overview of the J3 equals E.
I like it. And I'm going to dig deeper into this, but I want to kind of get back into the source of all life. I'm not sure if that would be a fitting term, but yes. I'll tell you how you impress me. There's a source of all life that is it fair to say that energy, and I think you do say it in the book, is everywhere. Energy is.
It's in everything. And I know for some people, it's very difficult to say, well, how can energy be in a book? It's pages, it's ink, it was printed. But there are vibrational frequencies that move through solid material. It's just because our history has embedded in us that it's solid. Therefore, we cannot penetrate it. But that in and of itself, for me, is a contracted thought. There are people that travel around this world, maybe in remote tribes, who have a far greater understanding of energy and how it can be transferred and transformed. But we don't understand that. Like, we think if we wanted to put our hand, through a solid object, our limited thinking says, no, you can't. But there are people who actually can do things that if we saw it, we would be, whoa, what is that? So I really do think that if we can begin to entertain that energy is in everything, and we do know what that looks like. If we see a beautiful garden, we're moved by a sunset. Some of us love a beautiful rainy day, right? Or the sparkle of a fire, a blade of grass, a certain smell. We see it and we take for granted that that is us in observance of energy. But we stop at where we've been conditioned. And the science of empowerment is challenging you to go past your present condition and expand what energy may look like for you and how you can use it and apply it to truly elevate your life's experience.
Yeah. And we have a relationship from a novice perspective. You wrote the book with this energy. So, at times positive,
Right.
it can be neutral, can be negative. So the question then becomes, where are you?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
So let me add,
Go ahead.
Mhm.
Sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was going to ask you. So if a person finds, in this case, himself, for whatever reason, got connected to some negative energy, how can they get to positive?
Right. Right. So it depends on, obviously, the person, where they are, just in their personal observation of their life. But, let's just take a common scenario. If you're talking, if I'm talking with a client and they're going through some hardships within a relationship, you have to look at it, first of all, from a few steps back. Right? Because when we're engaged in the energy of the pattern, we behave in a certain way. And then that behavior becomes a habit. So you say something, I react. That makes you react. And then I react. And then we have this cyclical dance together. And all we're doing is deepening the algorithm of the pattern. What is so beautiful about the J3 = E is it breaks in to that algorithm, that pattern. So let's say you and I were in a relationship and we're at the same old thing, arguing whether finances, how we're going to raise the kids, whatever it may be, money, all of what we all have been through, or most of us have been through. All of a sudden I stop and I ask myself, whoa, I am aware that we have been together for a decade and we have not moved from this conversation in a decade, right? And usually I'm going to blame you and you're going to blame me. If you did this differently, if you changed, I'd be good, but that's not how it works, right? So I'm aware, here we are again. What am I personally willing to do in that moment that I see that awareness? I can't go to you and say, Stephen, you need to change. You need to change the way you are treating me. I can't do that. So what am I willing to do? Take a step back and say, you know what, my love, I have just become aware that you and I have had the same conversation for a long time and it's gotten us nowhere. I am willing to do whatever it takes so you and I can get past this.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to take accountability that I really haven't been listening to what you've been asking me for. I've just been demanding and expecting. I'm sorry for that. I want to learn how to think with a broader perspective for you and I. Whether we go to therapy or counseling, we get an empowerment coach, we start exercising together. Whenever we get into this dialogue, let's give each other 5 minutes, or let's put on our shoes and take a walk and not talk, but let's just be out. Let's be out together, still stay together, but give each other some space, right? That's our critical thinking. And you know, I've realized that as much as I think I'm a positive human being, obviously some aspect of me is still in a negative field because I'm arguing with you. So now I'm going to neutralize this pattern, and I'm going to start to empower you and I. And I hope what I just shared with you will help us move out of this chaos and this drama, this self-inflicted behavior, and start to do something that will move us forward. How does that sound to you?
Yeah.
That's how you work it. Now, everyone's dialogue and right individual lexicon and the way we express ourselves is different. But every client, every person that I've ever worked with that has gone home and applied that day, that night, or the next day, it began to shift everything. It just changed everything because they began to understand, if I really want to enact or activate change, it starts with me. And it just did. And now we begin to feel what this power feels like. And this isn't power over a situation or a human being. It's being accountable to knowing that I have work to do. And I'm not going to desert you or blame you or run from you. I'm going to stand strong. I'm going to be accountable for what I have to do, but I would absolutely love it if you would do the same. So together we can actually advance.
You know, I understand why you say that this is a comprehensive guide to anyone who wants to live an empowered life, because, you know, what I just heard you say is that, hey, two people can get stuck in a negative cycle and just go around and around like a hamster on a wheel. Or it only takes one to become aware, and then accept responsibility, accountability, and then look at ways to get, oh my gosh, Laura, that's amazing. That's powerful.
And again, always keep the awareness, willingness, accountability, critical thinking, energy. You can do this in your work environment, with your boss, with your team, with your leadership. You can bring it. I have pastors reading this book. All right. I have guidance counselors, school principals. Right now in my hometown, the sergeant of our police department is reading the book. There is no end to how we can stand up for ourselves, move into an empowered life, and have positive effect on our family, our communities, and our global family, most importantly, because I also believe we are one. We are absolutely one. Absolutely.
I'm with you there. So when we walk into a situation, we can also ask ourselves, what type of energy am I taking into the situation? Am I taking negative energy here, or am I taking positive energy? And that gives us an opportunity to make some choices, right?
That's such a beautiful way. And thank you. Yeah. So such an articulate way. That's exactly what it is. Just, am I being negative? When you wake up in the morning and someone says, hi, hon, hi, love, hi, babe, hi, Stephen. And you're like, hi. Right there, you actually change the environment between two humans. You, unfortunately, right, you bring the energy down a little bit, right? Where the other person is all of a sudden like, oh, I came in, I felt good. Now I'm like a little, So now you, again, right, this is personal accountability. Now you just hold that space, and now you start building this incredible like empowerment shield, where even if somebody's misbehaving on the road, or someone's hollering at you somewhere, or you're just like, I got it. It's okay. I'm sorry that you feel that way. I'm good. I'll turn around and come back and see you when you're more open, or you're more willing, or you're a bit more aware. And then you just carry about your business.
Right. The energy is here. If we're going to be in one of them, we may not be aware of what it is,
Right,
but
right.
I think choosing positive is better. And as you say in the book, if you can't get the positive, go to neutral until you can work your way up to positive. So,
And this is why we place, right? So quantum fields, there's only two, negative and
mhm,
positive, right, that circulate our galaxies and here on
yeah,
Earth. But when my brother and I were talking, we talked about this. Most of us are in habit. We're living right on just autopilot. We really, truly are. And from morning till night, even in our dream state, it's just autopilot. We needed what I like to call a resting ridge. I think about if we were on a long, arduous journey and there were lots of challenges, we would need moments where we could catch our breath and just not judge it and not feel depleted or defeated, but we could
mm,
actually just catch our breath and look back and say, wow, I've made it this long. I'm good. I just need a moment. So neutrality is a very important component of this formula because some of us may be in neutral for quite a while because all of our environment may be very stuck in their negativity, in their cyclical patterns. And it's going to take a holding power, right, to get everybody to start to come around and begin to be willing to advance from their issue, their
that's
challenge.
right.
Yeah.
That's something. Oh my gosh, Laura. I mean, it's like I'm thinking there's so many things running through me as you're sharing with us. But someone may say, something, Laura, I wish I had this book 20 years ago. But you probably would say, okay, start where you are. Is that about right?
Yes, I actually just had a wonderful conversation with a friend of mine. She came across the book and she is in her 60s and she very heartfelt. She was actually crying when she reached out to me. She said, my entire life would have been different if I had this book decades ago. And I said that very sentiment. I said, let that go. Just release, right? Just release. You have it now. Now you can begin again. You can refresh what was good. You can release what did not serve you. And you can use this to spark all of what you wish you could have done back then. So absolutely, I write about that in the very first sentence, regardless of your present circumstances or conditions. Right now is the time, right? Even the famous Eckhart Tolle writes about the power of now. There's a reason that framework, now, it's all we truly have. And I know some people say, well, that's a cliche or that's a bit fluff, but it really is, right? 1 second ago cannot be changed. And we absolutely do not have control on the next one. It's maintaining your empowerment right here. This is what allows us to steady ourselves and become receptive and expansive in new knowledge, new information, new skills, new ways of being in this world.
Oh boy. Yeah. Take care of this moment.
Yeah.
That's just take care of this one.
Yeah.
The other one will take care of itself.
Yes.
Okay, look, I want to dig into the book a little bit, Laura, with some quotes here. Let me find a few
Yes.
things here that I want to read from. I just want you to kind of share with us.
Okay.
This one, you were talking about energy, and I'll just read, it's on page 10,
Okay.
the last paragraph, and it's the middle of the paragraph on energy, and I'll start, and let me read it just for the record. You wrote, if you are willing to instill this energy into all things in this world, the quality of your life would improve so greatly that every day would feel as if it were your birthday or your favorite holiday. Please, let me just say, wow, what are you telling us? What are you telling us here? Whoa, my goodness.
So that's something that my brother says all the time. Both Christopher and I get this a lot. We're really happy. We were not without hardships and trials and tribulations and challenges. By no means were we exempt from any of those experiences. what a lot of people see now is part of the puzzle of a life, right? Evolving. And Christopher and I really do feel like every day is a birthday. Every day is, say, Christmas or whatever you may celebrate. It is an opportunity to deepen the gratitude for all that we are fortunate to have. And for even those that maybe don't have anyone to celebrate a birthday with, or have never really had a true holiday celebration, or right now listening, or if they read the book, or they're just embarking on coaching with me, and they are coming from an area of deep struggle. Again, this is where we go back to our breath work and just neutralizing everything and understanding that the contrast to what you have been attached to is in place as a recalibration mechanism to propel you away and forward. So this is what I teach. If you have a hardship, don't anchor, let alone tether yourself to this hardship. Observe it and use it. Use it to move you away from the negative feeling and thinking of it. Use it to rocket you and advance you away from it. So every day becomes joyful, not 24/7, but more of your moments are, I'm grateful for that. I'm thankful for that. I'm so lucky for that. And as you begin to move into what that fluidity of gratitude feels like, we begin to empower how we think about ourselves. We no longer allow the past to define who we are going to become in the future. We use all of that to really transform our life. So every day is like a birthday or a special holiday, because this is how we live.
That's great. And I want to stay with, you just mentioned the past, and I want to stay with this a little bit, and I'll come back to reading from the book, because the past is such a thing that trips people up, a lot of people up. But
All
first,
of us.
let me go, because, and you talk about that in the book. Let me go to page 148 real quick. Here we go, page 148. Yep. And here, I got my ticket here.
Yep.
Let me 148, chapter 19. The title is "It Is Time." And I'll just read just a little bit from it, but it reminded me of the past. In order to accumulate a reserve of positivity, you must become that positive force based from your truest nature.
Yeah.
Not the past, but your truest nature. I wanted you to kind of comment for me a little bit on what that is, because let me just say this too about the past. I wrote it down because in another place you talk about negative wiring in connection with the past, and you talked about unresolved trauma in connection with the past. And then in that chapter 19, it's like, ooh, there's a way out of all of this stuff. So Laura, talk to us.
There's such a way out of it, right? Read the book, become coachable, transform your life. It really is doable. Back to all things are possible. Yes. So what I meant when I wrote that specific right there, based from your truest nature, I want, again, so for anyone that is in doubt or in conflict or is in a narrowed way of looking at life, I want you to just suspend all of that for the moment. Let's get into the now and understand that our truest nature is of love. It is of compassion. It is of expansion. We are here in physicality to evolve as broad as oh God, as expansive as dreams and ideas and visions can take us. Our truest nature is not to be in anger, hatred, division, conflict, sadness. Now, those are, and we can go on, right? We have 1,000 long list of all of that. Again, we can look at what all of that is there, but our nature knows we came into these bodies, right, with the greatest data system available, the mind and brain matrix. Fill it, add in, enter in knowledge, insight, wisdom, expansion, and become that. Our nature is to evolve. It is not to stay stagnant. It is not to become this walking algorithm of negativity, of divisiveness, of all of what we know is in the human condition. Positive intelligence teaches us that those positions are in place to spark awareness, to get away from them as skilled and with speed that we can, right? So when I see conflict out in the world, whether I'm forced to watch it for research, or I hear it in a neighborhood, or I see kids on a field playing a sport and something goes awry and they're fighting, I can't necessarily just show up and burst my energy through. It's not appropriate. So what I do is I start to think and try to reverberate out. I don't see the conflict anymore. I see the resolve. I don't see the negativity and the behavior anymore. I see coming together. I use my mind and my intelligence and my vibration as a human being to create a ripple of neutrality and then positivity, because that is our truest nature. So very quickly, when we come through and all of the process of being born in the bellies and the womb and how we become human out into the world, pretty soon, all of a sudden, it gets wired into the brain. No, don't do that. Don't go there. Bad girl, bad boy. Listen to what I say. No, you can't climb that. Don't go explore that. It's dangerous. We start to really contract human potential. And some of it as parents is out of actual fear, right? And guardianship. And we don't want him to get hurt. So we start very early hearing and molding ourselves into this contracted state rather than this expanded. So I want everyone to understand that our basic, truest nature is to evolve. If you are not evolving, elevating, advancing your daily life, you are, in my personal perception, you are wasting the gift of humanness.
Wow. So the past might be relevant if you've learned something, but the past otherwise is not that an issue. Yeah.
And
so let me ask you another negative energy, because I wanted to look at some practical things that people face. Depression,
yes.
anxiety. How does your book help? How does your book speak to them? Someone who's going through that.
So two parts to that, two answers. If someone comes to me and they truly are traumatized and there is very deep traumatic work that needs to be done, I will refer them to the proper care for that. You cannot take someone that is deeply wounded and still breathing the experience and empower them, right? There's steps that they have to take. So as a ethical life empowerment transformational coach, I would not take that on, because I am at a place where in my coaching, it's people showing up that are willing. However, one of my favorite stories that I share briefly without going into detail, and I have permission, is there was two business people, they were married, and they came across my book and they loved it and they bought it for, they had 5 children. And one of their children was very, very depressed, suicidal. And of course I shared, get the right care, because there's certain techniques and expertise that help through that very needed and gentle process. But about maybe 2 months in, they began to see a little bit of light to him. So I gave him personally, it was someone in my area. I went to see him and I said, I don't want you to worry about reading this from front to back and diving in all. I just want you to look at the titles of the chapters, and there will be something that will speak to you. And I want you just to read that chapter, and I want you to journal on that chapter. And I don't want you to journal on that chapter from where you've been. I want you just for a moment, and you'll hear me say this often, suspend the attachment to where you've been in your mind. And I want you to think as an empowered young man. What would you write from that perspective? He did that, and his life has never been the same.
Wow.
Never. So 2 parts to that question. Proper care and consideration when people are coming up and through trauma and tragedy, right? You have to be very observant to where they are. But there's a very specific time when I'm able to come in and they're ready, because there's just something in the way this book was written. It's the way that I thought about every word before, during, and after, so that it was an impetus to bring you to that part of you that deep down, right, that natural knowing, that baseline humanness of knowing, I came here to live an empowered life. Regardless of the conditions I set them up to challenge me to rise to that occasion, to build my mind and my body and my consciousness connection so that I can now go and then be in service to others.
That's great. And I get that. I mean, some people may not be ready just psychologically for it. It's
Right.
not that the science will not lead them through, but I get it. Sometimes you got to clear it to cobwebs. So, but I want you to look now. Before I do this, because there's some other things I'll dig out of the book, but I want to throw a few things together.
Yes.
What does your work inform you on these related words, forgiveness and compassion?
Well, without compassion for ourselves, we cannot forgive any aspect of our life. This is why the empowerment aspect is so important. This isn't, let me become empowered to be a powerful human being. This is, allow me the exploration into what an empowered human being can be. And until we can move into compassion, I was hurt, I was abused, I was abandoned, I was neglected, whatever that story is, until we can have self-compassion, we will never be able to forgive the experience, let alone the people involved. And it's a heavy journey from that perspective if we don't work on that. So those 2 words are very important to me, because we need to experience self-compassion before we can show compassion authentically, I'm saying, right? Lots of people have faux compassion. Lots of people faux forgive, and issues just arise somewhere else down the road. So this is a true journey, a true exploration into what it feels like to love self, to show up for self, and to forgive our part in it. And that can be quite challenging for someone that says, well, I was 7 and my mother abandoned me, or I was 10 and my father was an alcoholic and beat me. Where's my accountability? But this is where we go deeper into why we are here. Again, those are markers, those are our indicators. That contrast of, I don't like that. I don't want to be that. I don't want to grow up to abandon my child. I don't want to grow up to be an alcoholic. I don't want to grow. That's why they're there, because you have a whole set of skills coming. You have a whole life of wisdom that you are going to gain, so that when you are in that position as a father or a mother or a guardian or a mentor, or a parent, you now understand why that came in and how you actually recalibrated the energy so that you are a different parent, because now you are breaking that cyclical habit and you
Wow,
become
Laura.
it. Yeah.
Wow. Did you just tell me that adversity might not be to your destruction, but it could be for your guidance?
It is not for your destruction. It is for your upbuilding. Exactly.
Wow. Whew,
Exactly.
okay. That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, so now I want to continue talking about this way forward, because
Yes.
on page 28, Laura, you mentioned, and I've never seen these two words put together before, interior system. Let me read. Page 28, the third paragraph from the top.
Yeah.
You write, think of our interior system, that of mind, body, and spirit, as a circuit breaker waiting to be switched up. Wow.
And if you even go further, it says our awareness is the centralized code put in place to unlock our intellectual and energetic direction.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
So
that's beautiful.
Again, we position ourselves, even when we think we haven't, and we can't imagine why would we, right? Otherwise, we'd all be prince and princesses, and we'd be riding on ponies, and we would be discovering the cure of cancer, and we'd all be just amazing if we could, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why we've positioned our life's journey the way we have. And again, it brings us back. We are awaiting the awakening. And that does not have to be spiritual or religious. It can just be as simple as our potential as a human being is awaiting its awakening. Like, hello, here I am. And that is what goes into that gut instinct, right? That thing that hits your brain where you're like, that doesn't feel right. What am I going to do about it? Or, right, so many of us now have seen the world just in very challenging places where people just sit there and videotape with their phone. So my brother and I talk about this, and I'm on quite a few global panels around the world where we talk about leadership and how we can recalibrate. I don't understand that. So in a moment of transparency, if I saw someone beating someone up, the thought of taking my phone out and viewing it, it like puts a crack in me. I don't understand that behavior. And I wouldn't want to go and grab the person and beat them up. But my humanness, my instinct is to tell me to separate the behavior, because I know this person does not mean to do that to that person. But somewhere, right, one is the aggressor and one is the victim. So separately, we can see their indicators are in play. But so much of what I do is to try again to activate, switch up that knowing that when you see wrong, correct it. And maybe you cannot put yourself in the middle of it because you would become in a danger position. I understand that. Do something. Then that is either scream, call for help, grab onto 3 more people, and then go into it together. Do something. This complacency of observing anger, negativity, and hatred, and all this has really destabilized human potential. So I'm doing my best to offset it.
That sounds good. I mean, to think that we're separate just seems to be a big misunderstanding. We were poorly conditioned. But anyway, here's another one. And I know we're running out of time. I got to bring you back. I got to ask you to come back because there's so many things that I want to get to. But on page 29, I want to get this one in. You mentioned that you can rewire the brain. And I thought, boy, this sounds Joe Dispenza. You are into this neuroscience stuff. Let me see if I can find it just to read a bit of it.
Yep.
You said, this is where, and this is the last paragraph from page 29, this is where we begin to have fun.
Yeah.
We initiate this journey by rewiring the brain and reformatting the programming that has not served us well.
Yeah.
Laura, that is so delicious. If it was a bowl of fruit or vegetables, I would just eat it.
Yep.
What are you telling us?
I'm telling you to have fun and get excited about yourself and all that you can expand into becoming. And yes, I love the great Joe Dispenza. His work is helping heal this world, but we can absolutely, it's something like 700 to 1,500 new neuronal pathways that we can build, recreate, spark into existence every day by thinking differently, by breaking the chain of negative behaviors, by recalibrating habits and doing better. So, right, you can't go from smoking every day or drinking every day or being overweight to all of a sudden looking like a superstar and dropping it. Little changes, movements of advancement, rewire. So this is one of my favorite sayings. This is what you get to do. This is why you have to have fun with this, because it should be fun. Redesign the architecture of thought itself to dissolve negative patterns and behaviors through to positive outcomes. Pretend you are a designer. You are creating a new blueprint of how you're going to think about thought. Pay attention to what you're saying. How are you saying it? Why are you even saying it? What is the tone? What do you really mean about what you're saying? What is the intentionality behind it? Really think about your place in every experience. Am I uplifting that other human being? Am I bringing kindness and compassion? Am I offering wisdom and education so that their day past this interaction will be better? This is how we rewire the structure of how we think about thought. And when we think about thought differently than we have up until this point, now we get to live an empowered life. And this is how we actually create a new brain, a new consciousness, a new body. You get excited about knowing that you can empower every aspect throughout your day. And when you apply the formula, when you read this book, most all of my readership, I end up coaching. Everything shifts in their life, their family dynamics, their work, their health, everything. It's really quite amazing. I humbly say that because you know how when you write a book, you don't necessarily feel you wrote it. You feel that there were powers around you that helped you create the information. So I really do believe that the formula came to my brother through expansion. The science of empowerment came to me through expansion. And now that is what I want everyone to understand. Stop looking at everything this way, open it up, and keep going beyond what you do now. Find a way to do it differently, not do it better. Just do it with more empowerment, do it with more thought, do it with more awareness and willingness to be accountable to how and where you put your emotions into your experiences and which energy are you going to intend into your day.
Amazing. And there you have it, folks, The Science of Empowerment by Laura Brennan Ballet. Laura, I tell you, this has been a joy to have you on the show today. I want to bring you back at some point, maybe late 2023 or early 2024, see what you're up to. This is an amazing book. Thank you so much for being with us, Laura.
Thank you.
Well, you've been listening to the Possibility Action Network podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton. Our guest today has been Laura Brennan Ballet. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton. Until next time, good day.